Do you have what it takes to be a good storyteller? This is a trick question because you may be thinking, well, of course, Valerie, I'm funny. I can tell a great story. The reason it's a trick question is because I'm actually talking about a professional environment. Maybe you're at a corporation, you need to be at the podium, you're going to tell a story. Perhaps you're at a wedding and you're telling those famous stories about the groom. Or perhaps you're giving a eulogy. What's important about being a good storyteller are three things. It comes from the heart. It's personal. That means you don't need notes. So that's the second thing. Don't be using notes. The third thing is you want it to come from your heart. If you're giving a story, you don't want it to be some fantastical imagination. You really want to captivate people because it's true. Let me share a story with you about myself. Many years ago, I was a corporate researcher. Some people would call me a librarian, but I never worked in a library. My forte was creating research departments. I worked for a real estate appraisal company, Dotson and Associates in Dallas, Texas. I was creating a research department for them. This was a very intense environment. Now, one of the reasons it was intense is because the owner would actually write the appraisal value he wanted from the appraisers on the outside of the new folder. The real estate appraisers were under a lot of pressure to create something that was basically illegal. I, however, am a prankster. Even though I might be under stress, it's very common for me to joke around. There was a colleague there who was also notorious for being a prankster. We would pull pranks on each other all the time. Not necessarily loved by the rest of the appraisers. Most of them worked in an environment with closed offices. It was relatively quiet, except when Daryl and I got up to our nonsense. Daryl liked to rearrange my office, which was also the research room, the research department. I would leave at night. I would come in the next morning. Sometimes I would have to look for my computer. I always had to take my chair off of my desk because he would turn it upside down. Many times I had to look for the phone. This continued for months on end. We went back and forth. One of my tricks that I loved that I planned on him was to reprogram his phone. He had a loud voice, so do I. He didn't close his office door when he was working. His phone was programmed first to his wife. I reprogrammed that speed dial to a massage parlor. Everyone in the office heard this. Daryl was in disbelief that he was calling massage parlor instead of his wife. Therefore, he called it a few times and everybody was just in stitches. It was becoming a nuisance to other people, though. We did come to the conclusion we were going to have to stop. I came up with the creme de la creme prank against him, which of course he didn't know I was doing. I always had snacks in my office. It was usually peanut butter and crackers. The day I chose, I knew that Daryl was going to work late. It was raining outside, so he couldn't really go out and do any physical appraisals of property. I ran downstairs. I was so nervous. I ran downstairs in the parking lot and I took this big glob of peanut butter, put it in the door handle, underneath the door handle. So when he grabbed his door handle to open the car, he would get a fistful of peanut butter. I also put saltine crackers, which were individually wrapped, on his windshield because I knew it was raining outside. When he went out from the underground parking, he'd have to turn his windshield wipers on, and he would see those saltine crackers to have with his peanut butter. The next day, he proceeds to let everybody know about his evening with the peanut butter and crackers. He tells everybody that he's rushing home. Daryl's always in a hurry. He's rushing home, gets to his Jeep, grabs a car door handle and gets a fistful of peanut butter. He's shaking his hand vociferously. His wedding ring comes off. Well, luckily, as it does roll into the gutter, it's a very shallow gutter. He retrieves that. He's even more mad at me now. Jumps into his car. Now he still has peanut butter on his hands. He closes his door with the peanut butter on his hand. He grabs the steering wheel with more peanut butter. And he's cussing. He leaves the underground parking. It's raining. He turns on the windshield wipers, and there's those darn saltine crackers to help him enjoy his peanut butter and crackers. That's how you tell a good story. I didn't even have to look at my notes. I know it by heart. Again, you want it to come from your heart. You want your story to be personal. You don't want to use notes. You really want to practice. That's what makes a good storyteller. You don't wing it. Believe it or not, in Kundalini yoga and in meditation, there are fun videos. HARIPRAKAASH, one of my favorite virtual teachers, and I studied with her in New York, has a few videos with children, and they're adorable. They're actually fun. Or if you're a busy parent, you're coming home from work, you're working with your children, trying to keep them calm and occupied, put them in front of these yoga classes for children, and you will also calm down. Made in Meditation, Carrie Kopisek's meditation website has really wonderful and easy art projects for children. They won't even know they're doing meditation. It's a very calming environment. I stress this on every podcast. The links, of course, are in my podcast details. Lastly, Glenelly wines are the epitome of sustainable wineries. They have what's called gravity-fed containers for the wine. What's important about knowing that a winery has gravity-fed anything is that they're not using any electricity. That's what makes a winery sustainable. The least amount of natural resources that they use makes them more sustainable. Gravity-fed means that they are putting the grapes at the very top of these containers, and just by gravity, they are going down to each container until they're crushed the appropriate way and they become wine. Now, of course, it has to be fermented, but that's what's important about knowing about gravity-fed. The other aspect that Glenelly uses for sustainability is concrete. The reason concrete is so important, it holds a steady temperature. When you are fermenting wines, you have the final product, you want it in a stable temperature for fermentation for the final product, and concrete is good for that. They also have their winery facing southeast so that they do get good exposure when the weather needs to be warm for what else they are doing as far as fermentation. To wrap this up, be a good storyteller. Whatever you're doing in your presentations, even in your networking or in your elevator pitch, try to put a little punch in it with just a little nice touch of humor. Goes a long way for people to remember you. Kundalini yoga and meditation, made in meditation, actually fun. You will find yourself laughing if you're doing either one of these programs. Laughing is good for us. Lastly, sustainable wines. Please text me, send me an email, send me a smoke signal, because I would love to help you find sustainable wines, and especially Glenelly. I've been talking about them for a month now. Remember, it's Women's History Month. Madame Luc Sang is the founder of this amazing winery. She's in her late 70s, and she's killing it. In conclusion, I'm Valerie Hale. I produce this podcast once a week to help people create a blueprint for a life they deserve. I have also started teaching online public speaking courses, which are private. They are called Fear of Public Speaking. Kick those thoughts to the curb. Send me some hugs, give me some praise, send me some compliments, some questions, some concerns, all on my podcast. You have all my contact information in the podcast details. Merci, et au revoir.